Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Defending the Faith by Sea, the Ottoman Naval Heritage. I will start with two excerpts from the Holy Quran. It is Allah who has subdued the ocean for you, so that ships may sail upon it at his bidding, and then you may seek his bounty and be grateful. Let not the unbelievers think that they will ever get away. They have not the power to do so. Prepare to confront them with what you command as military strength and military resources, so that you may create fear into Allah's enemy, your enemy, and others beside them, who are known to you, but known to Allah. In 1979, I was privileged to be commissioned by the Topkapı Saray Museum in Istanbul to undertake a detailed study of the personal library of Fatih Sultan Mehmed II, the conqueror of Byzantium in 1453. While working there one morning, I was invited by the director to see something very special, possibly connected with the Sultan, in Beşiktaş on the European side of the Bosphorus. After a short ferry ride, we trod ashore and soon entered a long warehouse building. What I saw overwhelmed me. A huge wooden Ottoman oared galley in perfect condition, towering majestically above me and stretching the whole length of the building. A type of vessel I only knew from pictures of centuries ago. This imposing imperial vessel, known as the Kaduga, now dominates the exhibits in Turkey's new National Maritime Museum. 40 meters long, and once powered by 144 rowers, it is the world's oldest, well-preserved ship, not revealed by archaeology. On its ornate kiosk at the stern, a poem is inscribed, "On land and sea, may His Majesty Sultan Mehmed, Khan of the Ghazi warriors, rule. He is always the friend of Khizr, and therefore of Allah. In happiness may he always build such exquisite caiques. May he reign in the kingdom of earth with the longevity of Noah." Although at the time of my visit it was conjectured that this referred to Sultan Mehmed II himself, recent scientific dating has revealed that the vessel was built between the late 16th and mid-17th centuries, possibly for Sultan Mehmed IV, 1648 to 1687. Until the early 19th century, the Grand Kadirgah carried successive sultans on important ceremonial occasions as an expression of their naval might. By 1390, the Ottomans expanded their small inland principality in northeast Anatolia to the coast of the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. They soon adapted to seafaring and established a number of maritime arsenals, of which that at Istanbul was the paramount one, where ships were built and serviced to ensure the empire's naval power, to advance and defend the empire, and to protect those crossing its seas as traders, travelers, and pilgrims. Here, galleys of various types were constructed, readily maneuverable, of shallow draft, and not dependent on the wind. Following the conquest of Istanbul, the Ottomans continued to extend their territories by both land and sea. By 1517, they had overcome the Mamluks of Syria and Egypt and had become masters of northern Arabia and the Hijaz. Yemen was conquered shortly thereafter, and using their formidable navy strength, the Ottomans had become the dominant power along the North African coast. The Ottoman sultans assumed the dignity of caliph and the duty to protect and sustain Islam's holiest shrines in Mecca, Medina, and Jerusalem. Important to their economy was their acquisition of lucrative trade routes, which passed through the Middle East via the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea, and connected the lands bordering the Indian Ocean with those of the Eastern Mediterranean. This peak period of Ottoman expansion coincided with that of the Portuguese discovery and exploitation of a maritime route to Asia around the southern tip of Africa, employing heavily armed sailing ships capable of transporting substantial cargoes across the open Ocean. Following the advent of Islam in the 7th century, and prior to the appearance of these Europeans, Muslim traders and navigators had come to dominate commerce across the Indian Ocean, where an unwritten code prevailed that vessels loaded with cargoes and passengers could cross peacefully without fear of attack or piracy. The European adventurers surprised all by immediately on their appearance ravaging unsuspecting shipping and attacking trading ports without mercy. The first Portuguese captain to cross the Indian Ocean, Vasco da Gama, himself recorded seizing the first vessel he encountered, forcing its Muslim crew to act as his pilots, and later capturing a merchant vessel, taking its cargo and slaughtering all on board. The Muslim navigator Ahmed Ibn Majid, famous for compiling the first comprehensive guide to the Indian Ocean and its navigation, lived at this time and wrote of the impact of these Franks. They arrived at Calicut in northwest India at the beginning of the year 1906, 1501, now Common Era. There they sold and they bought as they were able. They bribed the Samiri, local rulers, and oppressed the people. With them arrived the hatred for Islam, and people had fear and anguish. The land of the Samiri was not accessible for the ones of Mecca, and Gardafui, the eastern tip of the Horn of Africa, became the place of the watchmen. In reaction, the Ottomans brought their naval capabilities to the defense of their Islamic brethren. They assisted the Mamluks in developing maritime arsenals in Suez at the head of the Red Sea, where warships were constructed for retaliatory naval expeditions against the Portuguese. Another arsenal was established by the Ottomans at Basra at the head of the Persian Gulf. The Portuguese attempted a siege of the major commercial and pilgrimage port of Jeddah in 1517, but were repelled. Henceforth, Europeans did not threaten Red Sea ports, although they were wont to harass vessels at the entrance to these waters. The Ottomans' determined defense of the heartlands of Islam and the critical sea routes servicing them is clearly reflected in a nautical map of the northern Indian Ocean, commissioned by King Manuel I of Portugal in 1519. Here, Arabia with its mosques and holy cities of Mecca and Medina is depicted, defiantly protected by a tall turbaned figure of a Mohammedan, brandishing a sword with crescents on his shield. The surrounding seas are controlled by a strong Muslim naval fleet. In spite of the colonizing momentum of European powers in the south and southeast of Asia, the Ottomans continued to foster relationships with regional Muslim powers, the high point being their support for the Sultanate of Aceh in Indonesia under Sultan Iskandar Muda, 1583 to 1636, who in 1629 deployed a huge fleet of galleys against the Portuguese stronghold of Malacca on the Malay Peninsula. However, a gross tactical error led to the defeat of the Acehnese and the capture of their enormous command galley. Called in Portuguese Espanto do Mundo, terror of the universe, it was 100 meters in length, with oars extended about the size of a modern football field, carried 100 cannon and 1,000 men. The victors reported that it was bigger than any vessel ever built in the Christian world. The triumph was greatly celebrated in Portugal, and the huge ship was taken to Portuguese Goa to be admired by the population. Paradoxically, this unexpected Muslim defeat led to the end of Portuguese supremacy in the northern Indian Ocean, as they were soon overtaken by the Dutch, who no longer had to contend with the naval power of Aceh. Galleys were eventually superseded as the world sea powers favoured ships of war because of their vulnerability to tall sailing ships, capable of firing massive artillery broadsides. Although European powers were to dominate South and Southeast Asia, the Ottomans continued to successfully protect their homelands and their oceanic trade and pilgrimage routes. They were able to do so not only through the experience and prowess of shipbuilders and active seamen, but on the advice of naval strategists. Outstanding among these was the renowned Turkish historian Katib Çelebi Mustafa bin Abdullah, 1609 to 1657, who compiled the Tufat al-Kibar fi Asfa il-Bahar, the gift to the great ones on naval campaigns, an extensive treatise on Ottoman naval history and doctrine in which he placed particular stress on the absolute necessity of the study of geography and related maritime navigational sciences, as the infidels have taken over the earth by means of these sciences, even posturing as heroes as they harass Muslims. In this respect, they have no equals. These were his words. The damage they do is greater than that done by enemies on land. Ottoman naval supremacy over the maritime boundaries of the Central Islamic world was ultimately weakened by Napoleon's naval conquest of Egypt in 1798 and by Russia's emerging naval power in the Black Sea in the 19th century. Nevertheless, for 4 centuries until the collapse of the Ottoman Empire in World War I, its navy played a critical role in successfully protecting the heartlands and holy places of Islam.